Okay, we are now live. I'm excited about today's broadcast. I'm excited about our conversation. I have been excited about this topic for quite some time. I want to wait to see if we're going to get some more people to come on so you guys can like and share. Again, welcome to the Healing Praise Podcast. Amen. Um, there she is.
Well, I'm trying. It doesn't look like I know what I'm doing. There we go. Hi. Wait,
Hello.
wait.
You
Okay.
guys, I'm gonna let everybody introduce themselves here in a minute,
Okay, there we go.
so that we can get to know one another. But I'm excited about today's broadcast. Like I was saying earlier, I have really been really thinking about this topic because some of the things that have been going on over the past couple of weeks. Um, some of the people that I have been counseling and seeing, and some of the things that they have been going through. And one of the things is evolving. And I touched base with both of you ladies. Um, and the word evolving keeps coming into my spirit each time that I sit down with different people, and especially with relationships and uh, friendships and children. And I want us to really dive into that and talk about it. But first, I want you guys to introduce yourselves so that because you guys have never met. I've just now, I just talked to Angela last night, and it feels like I've known her for more than just last night. So I appreciate you for joining us. And then Stacy is my sister friend, and we've known each other for I'm not gonna say because I don't want to give away our age. Amen.
Oh, I'm proud of him. I'm grateful.
Well,
Now, Angela looks familiar. Angela May, are we able to say last names?
I'm Angela Wilson, and I think you are Stacy, Sonia's sister. So I'm sitting here like, I think that's Stacy.
It is. Oh my God. You are great. Pastor Brandon, do you remember she sings like an angel?
Oh,
You have to, but anyways, we'll get to that. Hi,
okay.
it has been years. Hello,
it has
beautiful.
been. It
So
has
we're
been so
not
long.
really strangers, but things have changed. We have evolved.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
so
That's
Oh well,
good.
this is wonderful.
I'm
Yes.
super excited now.
Yes, I know God is in this space.
Yes.
I am excited myself.
I know.
Her
I
smile gave it away. Her smile. Her smile. That is what made me remember that I know her. But anyway,
Wow.
I'm sorry. I digress. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So you guys already know each other.
I
So that's
have.
wonderful.
Yes,
So
I've
that's
met
wonderful.
Stacy years ago.
So,
She came and sang to me at the hospital when Furious was born.
Yes.
really?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh wow.
And he has to be like 20 now.
29.
Oh my goodness, that is ridiculous.
So yeah, I kind of gave my age away, but it's okay. I'm up there. I
That's
wasn't
right.
14 or 13 when I had him. Thank
It's
praise
okay. We're cute. We're cute.
Wow, that is wonderful. I'm glad, God has a way of bringing people back together again, doesn't it?
That's
God.
right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm excited. I'm glad you guys know each other. Hopefully, maybe Sonya would join us.
Oh
Maybe she'll
yes.
see it and jump on.
She may be working though. She's been working. I spoke with her on yesterday, and I think she is because she didn't have time for me.
Uh-oh.
Well, well, that's funny. So we're going to go ahead and start talking about our topic. So we are talking about comfortable with strangers, being comfortable with strangers. And I remember when I posted it, I got some questions about it, and some people were wondering, what does that mean? What do you mean comfortable with strangers? And again, like I said, the word evolve kept popping in my spirit. And when we really sit down and think about it, we all evolve. No
Mhm.
one stays the same. I pray you don't stay the same.
Right.
As years go by, we all change and we evolve, hopefully into a higher self, a better self. We get wiser. Hopefully,
Mhm.
majority of us get wiser. And then we have these different relationships that we're in. You ladies are married. I'm not. Amen. I don't know. Stacy is just newly married. Amen. And that's funny. It's funny. Side note. So it's funny, Angela. So Stacy's husband sings to her.
Oh, nice.
That is something.
Yeah, I have to pay him.
Don't we all?
Oh gosh. So I was when I was sitting down and I was thinking about comfortable with strangers, I thought about my children. They were the first people that popped up in my spirit, and my daughter Nariah was one is the child that God takes me through and teaches me lessons with. And I can remember that Nariah was going through a phase of turning into someone that I did not know, and I did not like her. I didn't like my daughter because I didn't like who she was becoming. And I can remember God dealing with me and dealing with me with love and telling me how I had conditional love for my daughter. And I said, no, I don't. I don't have conditional love for her. And he said, you do. Because you have this idea of who you want her to be, and that's not who she is. You're gonna have to learn to love her as the person that she is becoming. And so she went from being my sweet little girl, holding my hand, to being this dressing not like the little girl that I pictured in my mind. My daughter hates dresses. And she didn't want to wear her hair out. She just absolutely hated it. She was just everything but what I had pictured for her. And so she had became totally different, a stranger. She was like a stranger to me. And it wasn't until God showed me that, hey, you need to take the limits off of your love for her, love her as she becomes, and allow her. And that's the thing, allow her to become who she is.
Oh, wow. How old is she?
She's 18 now, but at that time when she was going through these different changes, my daughter probably was about 8, 9 years old.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Even, with the child aspect with Furious and with him being an adult, and we were bumping heads. Not so, I think it started probably his latter teens, but I was still treating him. God had to show me that I was still treating him like that son, and even the way that I was talking to him. And, God had to reveal to me that you can't talk to him the same way. You can't talk to him like he's a little boy, but your expectation is for him to behave like a man. And so my prayer had to change. And it was like, Lord, teach me how to be the parent or the mother that he needs at this stage of his life. So I had to, and that it took me a minute because I was so frustrated and I felt like we were growing apart because I felt like we were super close and it was hurtful. And I became angry. So once God had to show it to me, you can't talk to him like that and still expect him to be respectful. You're putting pressure on him. You're going to cause him to act out. So I had to adjust because we don't have control of anyone else anyway. So I had to adjust. So I can get that with the conditional love. We have to, it goes back to, I guess, meeting people where they are. I think we love how we see a person instead of exactly who they are. Even we can transition that to relationships. Sometimes women fall for who they see a man as, or who they see that they can be, the potential. And not who they are. That's it. I can definitely relate to that scenario, that conditional love.
Yeah.
On many levels.
I'm I'm actually taking notes from you two ladies because I have 11 and a 13-year-old. So they're at the age where I'm seeing the changes. And again, like Stacy, I have a tendency to see them as children and feel like I need to do everything for them. And then when I pause and remember what age they are and step back, I realize that they know how to do a lot of it. They let me do it because I do it. But when I step back, they take care of it and do it even better than I could do it. So they really have grown into these little adults, and they're very, very, I hate to go into the boasting. My husband always tells me, stop that. But they're really good kids. And I think it comes from the fact that I married late and I had them late. So I had one at 37 and one at 39. And they are truly like small adults. They don't do any of the crazy stuff.
Praise
But
God.
their personalities, just getting to know them and trying to make sure that I allow them to be who they are without my preconceived notions of what I wanted. That is very, very hard. So
Yeah.
as Brianna was saying, I had a tendency to, my daughter, I was a Barbie doll, prissy everything, girly. I don't want to get dirty. My daughter's a total tomboy. Get out there, run, sweat. Please don't. You can do my hair if you want to. I'm gonna sweat it up in like about 3 minutes. She likes the ponytail. Don't let her hair hang down. She has hair like forever. She has nails that grow and won't break. All the things that we want, and all of that is just such a headache for her. But I'm having to go through that process of getting to know who they are, because really our children are born as strangers to us. We have an idea of who they are and who they're going to be. But unfortunately, when they become adults or when they start making choices, sometimes you realize that they are not at all who you thought they were. And then if you go to the school sometimes, now I haven't had this issue with mine, but I know when I was in education and in the classroom, I had so many parents that came to me, and I constantly heard, Johnny wouldn't do that. And I'm like, Johnny is the ringleader, baby. He is the main, he's the one. He's the main one. And you just talking to these parents, I realized that they had no idea who their kids were. And I thought that was something that was just individualized, but really that's everyone. You don't know who your child is when they're away from you. You pray that they're going to follow what you instilled in them, and they're going to follow what you set up for them. But they have freedom. God gave them free will. So once they get out there, oftentimes when people see their kids and they see them and they don't see the parent, they're looking at them like, who is this person? Because they had no idea that that was their child. And so honestly, when you talked about being comfortable with strangers, if you're a parent, you're always trying to be comfortable with strangers and trying to learn them and trying to understand them and trying to give them grace. And at the same time, trying to put away all of your expectations, because it's not about your expectations. It's totally about who they are and who they choose to be, and whether or not you are willing to, as Brianna said, I really think that we are incapable of unconditional love. I know people say we should have it for our children and for our mate, but honestly, when your child goes out there and does something that's just blows your mind, you still love them, but it's a different place. And that you could say that's unconditional. That's not unconditional, because that's conditioned on you doing what's right and being a good citizen and being a good person and being kind. But we are people. We're people. So we're not like God. God is the only one with that agape love. So everybody that comes into our life is a stranger. We tend to let people in and expect so much from them. Because we expect us, as I was talking to Brianna, we expect who we are. We expect that loyalty. We expect that confidentiality. We expect that courtesy that we extend, and that giving spirit. And everybody doesn't have that, because when you meet these people, they are strangers. And 6 months into the relationship, they're still strangers. There are parts of them that is still they're still strangers. And when you start seeing those pieces, sometimes you feel like, did I ever know you at all? But we have to just constantly remember that we're coming in contact and we're constantly interacting. And then when you marry a stranger. You marry their representative. And you pray that the real person is going to be close to the representative. But you always date a representative. So really, you marry a stranger, you give birth to strangers,
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody else that comes into your life is definitely a stranger. I think the only person that you feel if you're blessed with a good mother, you're a mother that is there for you and supportive and loving and kind, then that's the only time that I think that you feel that you have somebody in your life that is not a stranger, because they know your faults,
Right.
and they know everything about you, and they still love you.
Mm-hmm.
And that person is probably the only person that you meet in life that's not a stranger.
Yeah.
Even, you the longer you get to know them, if you're married for years, they start becoming not a stranger, but still sometimes they'll do something that you're like, really?
Mm-hmm. Now, I want us to talk about marriage. I want us to kind of go into that whole phase, because I counsel a couple of couples. And what I have been finding out, because this is my belief and this is what I really stand on, is that I heard something that blessed my soul was when I heard a minister, they were going and marrying this couple, and when he was reciting their vows to them, he asked the husband, and he said, "Are you willing to love several different people?"
Wow.
And I thought that was really good. I said, "Wow." I said, "That is really good. That's
Wow.
wisdom. Are
Yes.
you willing to love several different people? Because the person that you marry today will not be the same person that you
Oh,
will roll over beside 10 years from now. Because every 10 years, for one, we all evolve.
hmm.
But over the course of time, you're just going to evolve. You're not going to think the same way. You're not going to act the same way. Your motives, your motivations are not
Right.
going to be the same. And so, what do you do 10 years later when you roll over beside your spouse, and the very passive, very quiet person is not there anymore, but now you have a person who is very vocal, speaks their mind, and is very authoritative? What do you do now? What do you do with the spouse that um, doesn't even dress the same? Because what do they say? Midlife crises that men and women go through. What do you do? And because as the description says, it's easy to be obligated to someone that you call friend and that you love, but it's hard to be obligated to someone you now do not know.
Wow.
Well, as the baby in marriage, I'll take that little hit first, because I know wisdom is going to come after Angela. But a couple things that Angela mentioned that actually tie into what you just said. She said something that made me remember my grandmother, because I love the elders because they give you so much wisdom, and half of it I didn't understand why she was telling me because I was so young, but it was things that she knew that I would need. And
Mhm.
I jotted down a couple of things while Angela was speaking, and she was saying that we love with an expectancy to be loved the way that we love. And it made me remember that my grandmother used to say, and yours probably, some of your relatives probably said the same, everyone wasn't raised in the same house. You don't
Mhm.
have the same morals, the same principles. And so it makes me think of that. I can't expect you to give me necessarily what I give you, because I'll be disappointed. That is why you love, or you do things without the expectancy of them to give it back. You give freely. And that could go to material things. It could go to love. You want them to love, and you have to use wisdom and watch people's actions, in my opinion, because they speak louder than the words that's coming out of their mouths. Okay.
Mhm.
And so, and tying that into with the husband thing, Tyler Perry said something similar, Brianna, when you were saying was the pastor asked him if they were willing to marry several people. He said something profound, and I have never forgotten it. It was about, you need to know a person or see them through their 5 seasons that was happy, sad, angry, broken, with money. And it kind of goes back to the same thing that you were saying about the several different people, because I know even in the few months that I have been married, I have changed because circumstances have changed. And you have other factors that, affect who you are,
Mhm.
like being away from everyone. My son, still thinking about him and how he's doing. All of my friends, family, everything, because I had like 3 major life-changing events all at once. So I'm not that bubbly or giddy person that he probably married. He sees someone that is quick-witted, to put it nicely. Sometimes I'm really short, my answers, and it's like, okay. It's so funny because last night he was saying that he thinks he's been catfished because he hasn't seen any makeup, and he said, "Put your eyebrows on." And and with me, I'm like, because you said that, it'll be another week before I have a face. Thank you. So you're right. It's so many other factors that change. I have friends who have been married, and because their workplace have changed, so there's distance, there's so many other factors that affect the love language. Oh my God, it goes on and on. But how do we do that? I think communication is the key. A good counselor, you have good counsel, knowing who your circle is to help you, because it can blow your mind, all the changes. And you can get someone who's not biased, someone that can give you a fresh perspective instead of just that tunnel vision that we can get in getting our point proven. It's not about necessarily who's right and who's wrong. It's about the end results. So I think keeping that in mind, and knowing that, like you said, evolve is the best fitted word for that, because you're going to evolve. You're going to change individually, the marriage, your needs, your wants, everything, even if your health, or as I, mature, my body is changing. And so some of that can affect who you are and your delivery, your response. I think I have a lot more patience. I think that I am slower to speak and to listen. And some people, it's different. Some older people are so quick to say whatever comes up, it comes out. So some of that, I think, also goes into who you are, your own character. But because I try to speak in love and I'm very careful on a spiritual level, I think that weighs heavily on our delivery and how we handle ourselves also. I think that governs a lot of it. So, but yeah, I think communication continually, noticing the changes, talking about them, and being open about what your needs are. And some of it is heavy. Like I heard him, I'll probably put some makeup on Sunday. That's just me being rebellious. But you have to hear them. You can't just dismiss it, because it may seem small or silly to you, but it might just be a big deal to them.
Yeah, and when we think about things like that, a lot of marriages have broken up because of the evolution of the one spouse, and the other the evolution of them has caused some trauma or some residue of past hurts, and has opened wounds that never had been tapped into before. And so I was listening to you talk, and I was thinking about, I heard a situation where a lady had lost a lot of weight. She once was heavy and she lost a lot of weight, and the husband could not um, appreciate the new version of her, because now here you have this lady who has all this confidence, and where she wasn't getting attention before, she is now getting attention. And so the husband had to really sit with his emotional stuff and some of the residue of what he had went through prior in his life to marrying her. He was comfortable with his wife. He thought she was beautiful, but he didn't think she was beautiful enough to attract the attention while she was happy. She didn't either. They were just comfortable, loving one another. But now here it is. She's lost the weight. She's got confidence, and she doesn't dress the same. And so he was having a really hard time. And his thoughts began to go into, is she cheating? All this attention. But then when to begin to dig into what he was really feeling and what it was really resonating with inside, he came from a background where beautiful women that he loved to date did cheat on him. they got a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm.
And but that was his, and that can be a whole nother show when we talk
Mm-hmm.
about people's type.
Mm-hmm.
You can date your type,
Mm-hmm.
but your type may be a whole monster.
Right.
And so so she evolved into being someone else, and so he had to really get some help for the issues that he was dealing with. But a lot of marriages will break up over the evolution of
Oh
this.
yeah. Yes. And just to add on to what Stacy said and what Brianna said, you have to have God in there. I mean, even if you're not, as they put it, a holy roly, you have to have God in there, because there are times when really there's so much chaos going on around you. All you want is to get out of the whole situation, the whole scenario, and find a peaceful place.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people find another person as that peaceful place, because that person doesn't encapsulate all of the issues that this person that you have in your life. When you go to them, it's a getaway.
Right.
And you have to find a place where you can give that to God and allow him to bring you two together as you go through life's crisis, because you're going to go through some stuff. If you're going to stay with someone for any amount of time, you're going to experience some things that you never thought you were going to experience. And this kind of goes back to what you were saying about all these people that you meet and all these strangers. When my mother passed, my husband met so many different people. When my mother passed, I went into a shell. This extroverted wife became a total introvert. This super social woman became totally antisocial. Depression and was like at an all-time high. And those are things that I've never, ever even known. So for a large period of it, Brianna and I were talking, when you're in the area of counseling, you know what's going on with you. You can say what it is. You can put the title on it. You can do everything except fix it. You still can't fix it. So I could tell you all day long, this is depression. I'm falling into something, and this is really, really serious, and I need to talk to someone, and this is taking a hold on me because this is not my personality anymore. But if you're not into the counseling areas, you may just think, this is a sadness. I need to get out of this sadness. And getting out of this sadness oftentimes feels like mentally, if I can just get out of this place, if I can just step out of this relationship, if I can just go into a whole, and it's funny because at that point, you kind of want to be with a stranger. That's when you want a stranger. You want somebody that doesn't even know about your baggage, doesn't even know what's going on. You don't want them to be sorry for you. You don't want them to deal with any of that. You want to just pretend like that's not going on over here. Let me lay it down for just a moment and just breathe. And that's also when, going through life's crises, this is when you are so vulnerable to looking outside of the relationship if you don't have God as a foundation.
Right.
And then your vows have to be, as you go through life situations and you see your husband change and your wife change and their bodies change and their attitudes change. When I was walking around here, as Stacy said, with my hair a hot mess, because depression, you're not really going to the beautician. So when I'm walking around passing by mirrors like, wow, really? He was still like, hun, I love you. You want anything? You need anything? So he wasn't seeing what I was seeing. He wasn't seeing what anybody else would have seen. He was seeing, I believe, his commitment to God. And he was seeing his commitment to his wife. And, it was kind of like, I know what she can do. I know what she can look like. Right now, it's not quite what I signed up for. But I know if I needed to get it together, I know what it can look like and what it can be. So you need that. And then also, as Stacy said, you need a good counselor. You need somebody it's wonderful to talk to your mate, but sometimes you have to talk to your mate and sometimes you have to talk about your mate. So you need somebody to talk to. And you don't want to be out there all willy-nilly talking to people about your marriage and about your issues. So you do need a good counselor. Communication is everything. And it's a very, very careful dance between speaking your heart always. When something's bothering you and irritating you, you have to speak it, but don't speak it in that moment. Don't speak it hastily. Don't speak it when you're upset. You have to let it out though, because if you hold it in, it grows so much bigger
Right.
inside of you.
Mhm.
And so once you get that out, it makes you feel better because then you've handed it over to him and he can either do nothing with it or he can fix it. But
Yes.
you've allowed that information to get out of your head and now it's on his plate to handle. But you do have to be careful with your words because your presentation decides if this is going to be, an argument that lasts a week, or is this going to be a learning experience? And that all comes in your presentation. So that communication is so big, but you do have to have someone to talk to, not only him, but someone else that you can talk to and just bounce ideas off of, because sometimes they can tell you, you overreacted. And then sometimes they can tell you, no, that's a real issue. No, you don't need to let people do that to you. You don't need to allow him to, things that you're questioning. Maybe I'm, being a little bit too tough on him or what. They'll let you know, no, you're not. That's your expectation. And there's nothing wrong with that. So you do need someone that can kind of listen to you and give you guidance and point you one way or the other. And you need someone here. As I was telling Brianna, we pray and we get messages from God all the time. But it's nice sometimes to get a message from a person
Right.
that actually tells you, girl, I totally get it. Yeah, mine did the same thing yesterday, honey. And what we did was, it just helps to know that somebody else is going through the same situations. And no, I'm not ready to throw him out with the bathwater, but let me tell you how I screwed mine up yesterday. So you need that. You need that. And this type of forum is awesome because there's not a lot of information out there to tell you how to do it.
Right.
Coming into marriage, I had no clue how to do this. I didn't come out of a 2-parent home. I hadn't seen a lot of marriages. I didn't have a lot of friends that were married. So I didn't have
Right.
like a blueprint of how this was supposed to go. And I made the mistake, because I married late, I was on 10 as far as with the taking care of Angie, being self-centered, pack a suitcase and hit the road. I was like, just totally me. So I knew when I got married, I was going to have to dial it back some. And instead of dialing it back to 5, which if somebody had told me that, they would have said, no, don't go all that way. Just maybe about 5, go in the middle of the road. I went all the way to 1. And totally just, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to pick my battles. I'm going to just, and one day I woke up and was like, I don't even know this lady. The stranger was in the mirror.
Oh,
And I didn't like that. I was like, no, we don't, you have an opinion. You have, you have your ideas of how you think things should go. I need you to voice, this is not what we do. And so you need forums like this where people can listen and say, okay, so I'm doing a little too much. I'm doing the right thing, but I'm doing a little too much. Or maybe I need to take it back a little bit more. Some people get married and they only dial it back from 10 to 9. That's not going to work. So you really do have to kind of find a happy dance especially with African American women, because a lot of times we don't have a lot of references for dealing with things because we don't tend to talk to each other. We don't share our issues oftentimes with each other. We don't give a lot of guidance to each other. And then a lot of us aren't into therapy. The churches tell you, just pray to God. You don't need therapy. And that has always been, a big area that I've always just, no, you need therapy. You need God and you need therapy. And it doesn't say I don't trust God to handle it. It doesn't say, anything negative about your relationship with God. It just says that you have sense enough to know that you need to talk to someone here.
right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And people telling you that there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with you. It helps. It helps to hear it.
Yeah. It does. Yeah, and it really does. I was listening to you talk, and what was coming to my spirit was A lot of what happens within the breakdown of relationships, whether it is your marriage, whether it is between friends, whether it is your family or your children, is that do we really value relationships?
Mm,
You have to value relationships. A lot of times people will value your doing, your actions, but they don't value the actual relationship. And
mm-mm.
because I value the relationship, that means that even if it's a friendship, I take a vow, meaning for better or for worse.
That's right.
Um, through richer or through poorer, through
Yes.
sickness and in health. I
Yes.
value the relationship that even as we grow together, and you change and you evolve and things change within your life, and you go through bouts of depression or you go through bouts of stressful situations and things that seems like life is overtaking you and it seems as though you're changing and you're not the same. You seem to be a total stranger. You're not the same girlfriend I could just go to about and just tell anything to. You're different. You're not in that same place right now. But because I value the relationship, I don't easily discard you.
Ooh.
We
Mm.
discard people easily,
Ooh.
value the relationship. Because what happens in evolution is that we will evolve and become better. But the one thing that never changes about us, if you're already in a good spot, is your heart. So
That's
you
right.
can change that person, but your heart, I still know.
That's true.
I still know.
Mhm.
And so because of that, I value that. It's not easy for me to disregard you. And when you think, and you spoke about keeping God at the center, when you have a relationship with God and before any relationship, and you value that relationship and you understand how important it is for Him to see you in relationships, then you are always going to refer back to Him
Mhm.
in order to keep yourself in right standing with the person that you are in relationship with, because sometimes it's not always them, a lot of times it's us and how we handle the evolution of those that we're in relationship with. And it can be hard, it can be difficult,
Mhm.
and then there are times, do we actually have relational intelligence to know that sometimes some relationships are not for a lifetime? And then how do we
Right.
handle that? How do we handle when things shift and God is saying, okay, that's this season with this is up, and handle it with love and care and still value the relationship where we can split, but there's no animosity, there's no love lost. We just understand right now God has us on two separate paths.
Mm,
But then what do you do with the relationship that that no, you're married. This thing's supposed to be to life, to death do us part. There are some God ordained relationships that God said to death do you part. And
that's
so
right.
how do we handle these things, especially when people have turned into strangers and it seems as though we are becoming offended and our hearts are being hurt and we don't know what way to go. How do we stay anchored in those seasons? And when do
Mm,
we know, just like a marriage, when do we know to separation sometimes is good and we'll come right back?
mhm.
God can work on both of us. Go ahead, Stacey.
That's interesting because you and I had a conversation the other day and we were talking about, I can't remember how it started because we're all over the place always, but we got to the point where we were talking about the tough discussions with friends. And sometimes you may say something that you don't like, and you and I have had disagreements, and I remember saying to you, not to sound arrogant or cocky, but I had confidence in our relationship that we were strong enough that we'll come back. It's like we had a disagreement, but you will be fine. And we have had life changes where we have gone like a year and not spoken. And some of it, yeah, we may have been a little angry. And some of it, it was just life and things kept happening. But we came back. And I always remember the lifelong friend thing and then seasonal friends. But when you can come back and have a discussion and it's like the love is still there, it's not that I not lost love, but a lot of it is our maturity. And we were talking the other day about spiritual maturity. And it's tough when one grows spiritually and someone else doesn't. It doesn't matter if it's a friend, if it's a husband, if it's a sister, it's going to be a challenge there. But the person has to want it. Like I think Angela mentioned that, you know, God gives us a choice. A person has to choose to want to be different. They have to choose to want to hear you. And when we change for the better, I think we have an obligation to say, hey, sis, that's not right. Or, hey, honey, whatever. But as Angela said again, timing is everything. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there is a time when God will tell you to be quiet. You have to hear. And he may be telling you, no, not now. I know he's spoken to me, not now. He's told me to, I mean, we talk differently. I hear him. He knows how to get to me. He's like, shut up. Because that gets my attention. Shut your mouth. Go walk off. I've had to go for walks because I'm, you know, she was saying that she went scale back to 1. God deals with me on the level because I've always said what I felt, and it's not always delivered in the right way. So he has to tell me to zip it, because I have never held in anything, but my delivery, the person will miss the point. They will miss it, and they will just hear the anger, or they will hear the whatever and miss something. It could be the most important thing that will change their life, but if you don't give it at the right time in the right place, it's going to be missed. Mm-hmm. So we have an obligation to kind of hear from God and know, okay, not now. Or even if we take the spiritual aspect out, which, because everyone is not there. Okay, learn the person. If I know you, if I've taken the time to study you and know you as my friend, she's not in a good place. She's not going to hear me now. So you wait until you know them and say, okay, now she can hear me. It may be the next day, 2 weeks. Well, sis, you remember this? And I knew that you weren't in a, and I have learned to ask people even at work, because it was one lady, they, again, you know, I say what I have to say and people don't always like it. And I have forgotten about it. I came back to her, and Brianna, you can attest to this. It was 5 minutes later. And I was just talking, and I noticed that she was a little clammy. Went to, I said, you okay? I see, are you in a good place to receive? No, I am not. I said, oh, okay. Well, you know, I'll be back. So she was still a little upset. And I had gotten over it, because for me, once I get it out, I'm good, but that's not everyone's story. It may take someone a day. One young lady, she told me that deliberately, she said, I didn't talk to you for 2 weeks. I was angry with you. I said, I knew it, and you were stubborn. I said, well, I'm glad you're back. I missed you. You know, but you have to meet them where they are, because everyone is different. But if you take the time, like you said, that if you value the friendship, you have learned them. And I don't know how you can be around someone and not, for me anyways, you know, I can tell, even if like with our children, but I guess that's maybe that's innate. It's just in us, that you can hear in their voice, you don't sound right. What's going on? It can be that you're slow, you're dragging your energy. I can't explain it. You just know. And with that same token, some people, I'm still learning me. You know, you're saying strangers. There's a lot of stuff that has been brought to my attention that I dismissed it years ago, that I'm learning me. Like, for a defense mechanism, shutting people out or dismissing them quickly was my defense mechanism. Like, it's not, I don't even know if it was that I didn't value them. That's the way I dealt with the hurt or the disappointment. Oh, whatever. It was just for a season then, and I brushed it off. I used real life and real knowledge, you know, still to brush it off, because it is true. Some people are seasonal, and some of those people probably should have been there, I don't know, a little bit longer, and I brushed them off, got rid of them or whatever. But that was a defense mechanism that I'm still learning not to do now, because I'll put up a wall. I will put up a wall, like it doesn't matter, it doesn't hurt. And you have to be careful with those defense mechanisms, because once you put up that wall, you don't want that to become your permanent stance.
That's right.
You know, it's like, I can love you and don't want to lose you, but now how do we get back? As you said, Brenda, how do we get back? So we have to be careful with that. And it still comes back to me, to that communication, but it's timing. It's when the person is in the zone, but you do have to get it out. Maybe a letter. Everyone receives things differently. Definitely not text, because that can be misconstrued. Serious text message. I mean, conversation shouldn't be held via text, but sometimes a letter, voicemail, you don't know, but it comes back to communication for me. But when it's right, when the person is open,
Yeah.
And they may not be. That's the hardcore fact that you may have to face. They may not get to that place to be able to, but at least you can try. That's all you can do, and say, well, honey, I'm sorry, but this is how I felt, and I'm sorry if you disagree, but I just had to let you know, and just be okay that they may not get it.
Yeah. And I think we're living in, I said all the time, we're living in such a time where text messaging and Facebooking and all of this is so common versus a phone call. And so when it's time to have those important conversations, people are finding it hard to articulate their feelings. I was speaking to someone the other day, and when I'm a client and listening to them talk, and I said, "You're having a very hard time articulating yourself." And I said, "Someone has told you to shut up."
Mm.
And she said, "How did you know?" I said, "Because you are having a hard time expressing yourself." And I said, "A lot of times we grow some, and again, we can take it back to childhood.
Mm.
And I mean, I can attest myself, and God had to whoop me, knock my head up against a wall, because we can be so busy as parents, going, that when our children are coming to talk to us, we give them we might not say it, but we give them the impression, shut up. I don't want to hear it. And so in those years where they should be learning those skills, we as parents are the ones hindering them. So when they get into these relationships, they find it hard to cultivate healthy ones because they don't know how to express themselves, or they are afraid to express themselves because they might lose a friendship. And so, so that's how you find kids growing up to be very unhealthy adults in these very toxic relationships. And it's like, you didn't even come from that environment, but in reality, they really did, because you put muzzles on them.
Yeah.
They're trying to find acceptance. And so they're grabbing at whoever will accept them.
That's good.
Wow. That's some good. All of that was good. Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. So you said so many profound things that I would mention, but wow. Something you said about, do we really value friendships? And you were talking about how we sometimes, if we really, really value friendships, it's almost like a marriage commitment. It's almost like a marriage vow.
Mm-hmm.
And I found, like I was discussing with you, I found that in my personality of being a loyal person, when I developed friendships, I expected that type of commitment. And that is not something that's across the board. That's actually, we're unicorns. But that's not across the board. A lot of people, friendships come and go. We have all these slogans, people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. If you're out of my life, you gave me the scissors, There are so many cute little memes to go with letting people go, okay, peace, whatever. But when you really, really care about people, we have a tendency to feel like it's rejection when a friendship falls apart. So we don't try to repair it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, personally, my mother was like my world. So she was my friend. So my other friends were just extras. They were incidentals. They were optionals. And I never really leaned on them, or really, she was such a strict mother. I didn't have the chance to get to hang out and do all of this interaction with them. So literally, once she passed, those that were really trying to be there for me, just kind of looking at their style and their ways of doing things sometimes threw me off, because I really didn't know them. That they were just associates, but I considered them friends because we've been friends for so long. But I hadn't taken any time and put any energy, and probably hadn't put the value on those relationships that I should have.
Right.
So as they fell off, just with me being more introverted, more antisocial, more not answering the phone, more not approachable, more not intentional. As they fell off, I just kind of Oh, okay, I haven't. Oh, yeah. And Stacy was saying how, her coworker was like, "Yeah, you haven't spoke to me in 2 weeks." I literally know that when I hadn't spoke to somebody in a couple of weeks, I wouldn't even realize it. And so when they when they when they finally came back and they've been through like 2 weeks thinking that I'm processing, you know,
Mhm.
I'm just kind of dealing with life and I didn't even realize that they were MIA. And so when they start telling me, well, I know you were wondering why I hadn't called, and I'm thinking to myself,
Mm.
you had no, I wasn't wondering no, but go ahead, tell me. Um okay, I didn't know, baby. I'm sorry. But yeah, that showed me that I probably didn't value and that's something that I just learned in this moment. I probably didn't value it like I should have, because I should have a day or two or three
Right.
um felt that missing piece. Wow, I haven't heard from such and such in a while.
Mhm.
So that shows me that I may not, I'm guilty, because usually we can find our part and stuff. If we really want to find it, we usually don't want to,
Mhm.
but we can find our part, and that's my part. I don't fight for it. I'm not really a fight for a relationship person.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, okay, fine. And that's just been my personality always, because like I said, as long as I had my mom, everybody else was okay.
Mhm.
You know, they could go or come.
Yeah.
But then when she went away, it was like total silence,
Mm-hmm.
because my world was gone. And there were people still calling and still trying to connect, but it wasn't her. So it was total silence.
Mhm.
So all of that is just, that's, you're taking me on some trips about some things, and don't not discarding people, because I don't really kick you out of my life, but if you leave, I don't go running after you. And sometimes maybe you
Yeah.
should. Sometimes you may need to at least try to find out the reason
Mhm.
behind it. Then if it's something crazy, then you can go ahead and exit. But if
Yeah.
it's not, it may be something that I did.
Yeah, and sometimes what we got to always remember is that the enemy, especially when we're talking about God ordained relationships, again, the enemy never wants God ordained relationships to stay together, because he knows how powerful you are together. And so if he can get
Yes.
you to separate and divide, then he knows the damage that you will cause on him and his kingdom, on the
That's right.
gates of hell. And so when he can get y'all apart, he knows you can't
Mhm.
operate fully and effectively apart. And so
Right.
because your assignment is to be together, then he's like, I'm gonna do whatever I can. I'm gonna throw all kinds of stuff in your way. I will cause what you went through in your past to pop up, and them to do something and remind you of your past. And you're not subconsciously, you don't even realize this is something you're looking at them through skewed eyes,
Mhm.
through unhealthy eyes, and you're looking at them, and unconsciously you're saying, just like my mama, just
Mhm.
like my mama. Or you're saying, I knew it, I just was waiting on it. And you're not subconsciously, this is what you're doing. And so, and the enemy knows. He knows you. He studies you. And because he studies you, he knows what to throw at you. The
Right.
problem with us is we are not staying abreast of things, because the Bible tells us that he doesn't leave us ignorant to Satan's devices. So if he doesn't leave us ignorant, then if he also says that his people perish due to a lack of knowledge, that means we're not studying. That means we're not on our job,
Right.
and we're not fighting like we're supposed to. Because we honestly, we really do know who's supposed to be there forever. We do.
Yeah.
And because we do, it makes we don't have an excuse not to fight for those things. And some people say, well, if it's meant to be, then it'll be. Sometimes there it is meant to be, but sometimes you are going to have to fight for it. And it's not just because you're fighting um for the relationship, but you're actually fighting for your identity. You're fighting for your territory. You're fighting for those that are attached to you and your assignment, and it's
Right.
about you. So sometimes God is wanting you to fight just so you can be humbled and not be so
Mhm.
complacent and not take people for granted, because sometimes we'll take people for granted and think they're going to always be there,
Mhm.
and that's not the truth. And so a lot of times God is wanting us to look at ourselves, look inward. What is it? And I mean, it's elementary, but at the end of it, what could you have done to make the
Yeah.
situation better?
Yes.
And
I know
that's a
you
good
can
point.
out, but what can you do?
That's a good point. I've learned to, with disagreements, I always say, well, what did I look at it? I do a self assessment. You know, did I say something that caused this or that, because I want to make sure that I'm right. And so,
Mm-hmm.
but one thing that I have been big on it, and I wanted to make sure, because that pride can get in the way. You want to make sure you're not speaking from a prideful place. I would
Mm-hmm.
always say, well, no, I don't think that was it. But again, you have to know, I hate to say your opponent, or you have to know who you're dealing with, because you guys probably aren't going to be in the same place. What you're sensitive about, it's nothing to them,
Mm-hmm.
and they may not even be aware of that it's just like, okay, well, that couldn't have been it because that's silly, or whatever. But to that person, it is a big deal.
Right.
So I think we have to take the time to look at it and put ourselves and some other old school in that person's shoes or their position,
Mm-hmm.
or if we know them. And you may not know the person that well. Again, and we could go back to a coworker, a little hint of them, but you don't know, a lot. But I pay attention to triggers. I try to, and I pay attention to triggers, not to set people off or trying to learn triggers, not to set them off, but how to keep peace.
Right.
But you have to be careful. But a lot of people learn who you are and they use that to get to you. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just like we have to make sure, and they may be doing it, like you said, unconsciously. They
Mm-hmm.
don't know it. I have a friend, and the person knows that they're sensitive in the area of liking attention.
Mm-hmm.
So they're deliberately ignoring them. So you have learned this person and you're using that against them. You're using it as a trigger to get a certain reaction. We have to be careful that we're not being the ones used and manipulated to cause a rift. You get what I'm
Right.
saying? So I always do a self-assessment first when there is a disagreement. And
Um,
I'm not too big to apologize ever. And even if I don't feel like I did something wrong, I try to say, and this is where I was saying, I hope the pride doesn't come in. If what I said hurt your feelings or how I said it, that was not my intention,
right.
because a lot of the times, most of the time, I pretty much mean what I said. You know how that cliche is, I said what I said, but that's
Mm-hmm.
nasty. You don't say it like that. But most of
Uh,
the time, I meant it.
Let me stop you right there. We're gonna have. Let me stop this recording. We're gonna pick right back up. If you ladies got at least 20 more minutes with me, I want us to
Sure.
finish up. So let me stop this so we can, because I want us to be able to finish up. Give me 1 minute.
Okay.